I'm Megan from Elements of DIY, and today I'm going to walk you through a lot of the supplies that are needed to get started for acrylic pour. On Instagram, you can find me at Elements of DIY, and I also am starting to do YouTube videos that are under Elements of Acrylic Pour Art if you're interested. So what we're going to go through today is I actually offer a kit to get started with acrylic pour. This was one thing that when I started doing acrylic pour, I was really overwhelmed at the amount of materials that were needed to do acrylic pour. I thought I owned a lot of art supplies to begin with, and then I realized upon research that I needed a lot of things that I didn't own. And then upon spending some time doing acrylic pour, I realized that there's a lot of things that you can use that you don't even realize are good substitutes for it. So I'm gonna walk through everything included in this kit, and then I will take some time to pause and show you, if you didn't have this item, what other items you could use. So again, on our website, elementsofacrylicpour.com, you can purchase this kit. It's nice because everything comes inside this container. So as far as storage for later, everything goes back into this container, and then it's also the container that you end up using to do your pours in. So let's get started showing you what's inside this kit. So again, it comes in this plastic container. We include a little checklist to make sure that you have everything that you need from the kit. So I'll put that aside here. These are just little snacks. Sugar is always important when doing something creative. All right, so first up in the kit is we include 3 sets of gloves. Obviously, you want to wear gloves when you're working with paint because it does have a tendency to splatter and you kind of get it everywhere. These are non-latex gloves, just given all the allergies, but you could easily use like the food prep wrap gloves that you get. Gloves are pretty readily available. You could also reuse the reusable ones that you would use if you're washing the dishes. So those work really well too for acrylic pour, making sure things are clean. Next up, we include a drop cloth. So as many of you know, acrylic pour can be pretty messy. So I highly recommend covering any of the surfaces, especially the floor of the area that you're working in, unless you're in an area like outside or in the garage. That doesn't matter as much if you spray it with paint. This one is a drop cloth that you would throw away. They do make reusable drop cloths. You also could use just an old sheet or an old blanket or an old sleeping bag or anything of that nature that you don't mind getting a little dirty. I've also seen people just use a lot of cardboard. So any of those would work if you don't have access to a drop cloth. But these are pretty cheap and inexpensive, and actually you can get them at the dollar store now. So next up, we include a trash bag. I like to use this one in particular. It's actually a really heavyweight trash bag, but it works really great if the area that you're going to be displaying your artwork in when you're all done. I actually cut this so it lays flat, and then I know that my artwork when it's drying will not go through this, and it has a nice safe place for it to dry even as the paint continues to drip off of the canvas. We include painter's tape. Painter's tape I like to use to hold down. So I'll show you once you get the kit kind of assembled, but essentially I put the sticks on the side here. So these are sticks that are also included, but it's what your canvas would sit on. So I actually use tape to tape them to the side so they don't move around when I'm doing the pour. If you didn't have painter's tape, you could easily use masking tape or packing tape. All of that would work. Essentially, you just want to have something that would keep your surfaces from moving around. All right, so next up we include 6 starter paints. Paints are readily available, as you know, from craft stores. I've actually seen them at places like Staples and office supply stores now too. It doesn't really matter how expensive the paint is that you use. Actually, sometimes some of the cheaper ones do work better, like Hobby Lobby or where these are from. They're like $1.59 a paint. You can also use paint from samples. So if you go to your local hardware store and just get a little can of paint samples, that paint works really well too for acrylic pour. But we like to give you kind of 6 colors to get started in your pour. And obviously, if you have like this blue, you could always mix some white with it to make a lighter blue, so feel free to mix your paints to get that custom color that you're looking for. Next, I like to include straws. So a lot of the techniques that I teach do use straws to help move the paint around the canvas. As you know, you could easily go to like Starbucks or a coffee shop or anywhere like McDonald's where they give you straws for free. You can absolutely use those. You can use reusable straws. So if you have like a metal one or a silicone one, you could use that as well. I prefer just using disposable ones that I can get rid of when I'm done because they usually have a tendency to get covered in paint. But definitely having a straw is great for acrylic pour. Next, I like to include a spatula of some kind. This is actually just a really cheap and inexpensive putty knife that you can get from like Home Depot or Lowe's, but anything, you can even use just a piece of cardboard. I just think it helps kind of move the paint around the canvas. It also helps when you're putting your base layer on the canvas. It helps move that initial paint around so you have full coverage. So I definitely like to include some kind of larger spreading tool in the kit. Then there is stir sticks. So these ones are a little bit larger. These are like craft popsicle sticks. You can either use the thin ones, you could also get them directly from a popsicle. You could use like a stir stick or a stick from your yard even. There's a variety of things that you can use, but essentially we use these to just mix the paint initially. And then as you know, when you're doing your pours, it's always important to continue to remix that paint as you're going along. So I like to include quite a few of these. Another tip, feel free to reuse these too. So once you're done for that day, if you set these next to where your canvases are drying, you can actually reuse these same paint sticks over and over and over again. You also can get free paint sticks from your local hardware store where you purchase your paint. You can use those too. Sometimes I cut them up to make them smaller, but there's a variety of places to get free sticks to use for mixing paint. All right, next up, a funnel. So you could easily make this out of an old plastic bottle. I actually have a plastic bottle here. You could just cut this down here and then this portion would then work as a funnel. So cheap and easy funnel. Otherwise, you can get these really available at dollar stores pretty inexpensively. Home Depot, Lowe's, all of those types of places. And then your local craft stores would also sell funnels as well. But technique-wise, this is always a really fun one to add a bunch of paint to it and then watch it disperse over the canvas. So I definitely always like to include a funnel. I try to always have a variety of cups available. So I do usually like the larger ones if I'm doing like a dirty pour where I'm putting a lot of paint in one. My base paint and my pour medium I usually always mix in a larger cup. And then the smaller ones here I like to use for when you're layering the paint or mixing some things together. Before you apply them to the canvas, I like to use the smaller ones. These are very inexpensive. These ones are actually just Dixie cups, but you can even get these sometimes in restrooms. They carry them for mouthwash. There's a variety of places, but I do like to have multiple sizes. I've also seen people use glass jars instead of cups. That way you could rinse and repeat and reuse them. In paint mixing, I actually now use, these are actually specimen cups. They are available on Amazon. They're very inexpensive and you get a lot of them, but then they have the lid on it. So as you mix up your paint, you could easily put a lid on it and then use it again for next time. So just a few different options of kind of the cups to get started. Saran wrap. So this is a tool that's used often for what's called a swipe method. So when you're putting a lot of paint on a canvas, you then use something like saran wrap to move the paint all consistently across the canvas. If you didn't have saran wrap, you can also just use a piece of plastic that comes in the mail, a heavy piece of cardboard. They look like this, but they're a lot longer, so it looks almost like a little squeegee. They do make those as well that you could use, but I personally think the most inexpensive, easiest way is just to get plastic wrap. The nice thing about this too is I don't have to clean it when it's done. So after I swipe, I leave it in the bottom of my tub and then just throw it away when I clean up later. So you don't have to clean it. Canvases. So we include 4 canvases to get started in our kit. Really great places to get inexpensive canvas. These are from Five Below, so I like getting them from there. Hobby Lobby, Staples, Office Supplies all have them. A little bit more advanced, so you can make your own, so you can easily get the canvas from an art store, or even like Home Depot sells canvas material that you could use. Other than canvases, you can use wood. I have seen people use cardboard or just really thick paper. You can do that too. The other thing with canvases, remember that you can reuse these. So definitely do not feel obligated if it didn't turn out perfectly. Let that paint dry and then pour right back over it. So you don't need to keep spending a ton of money on canvases when you're just learning. So I definitely recommend using them more than once. Okay, so next up is spray lubricant. So this is what we use to create cells. Obviously, at this point, you're aware that there's a lot of different ways you can create cells in your paint. This is just one of the easiest ways to do so. Okay, so if you didn't have access to this, you can also use, so they actually sell silicone oil, which helps make cells as well. So there's a pre-made oil that you can use. This is another one that's a pre-made cell medium. I have heard some people that use alcohol, so rubbing alcohol works. And then you can also use varnish is another thing that you can add to your paint to create those cells. So there's a lot of different things available to you. I love the sprayed lubricant. I think it creates really pretty large cells and is very inexpensive. All right, so last thing included in the kit is we include Floetrol, which is what I use as my pour medium. So this is really easy to use. It's inexpensive. It doesn't have an odor to it. It's very, very user-friendly. But you can also just use water. So you can mix your paint with just water to create that same kind of liquid flow technology that you'll need to do your acrylic pours. So you can also just buy pre-made pour medium. This one is, I think, just from Hobby Lobby. And then you would just add it to your paint to create the same thing that Floetrol does. Or you can buy paint that is already pre-mixed you don't actually need the pour medium then. So it's pre-mixed already with a pour medium in it, and it's very liquid in nature. You also can use glue. With glue, I would recommend getting glue all, not just like the standard Elmer's glue. Glue all is a lot stronger, so it's going to continue to create that bind that you need between the paint and your medium so it doesn't get too runny. But those are just 4 different options essentially that you can use for pour medium. So Floetrol, pre-made mix, pre-made paint, water, or glue. All right, and last but not least, I just wanted to show you. So when you get the kit, this is exactly how you would set it up. So you put your 2 sticks here. Again, use the tape to attach the sticks to the side. Set your canvas on top here, and you are good to get started for acrylic pour. All right, so a bit more advanced once you really get into acrylic pour. Another thing you can purchase is a spinning cake stand. This one in particular, it's actually coated in plastic to help kind of protect the joints of it to make sure it keeps spinning. This one's actually metal, which I find works a lot better than the plastic versions. But this is another way that you could put this in the bottom of your container, put your canvas on top, and then you can either do the spin technique very easily that way. But even if you're just working on a regular canvas, it's a lot easier to get to the other side of the canvas when you can just spin the wheel versus having to run around to the other side to manipulate that side of the canvas too. So just one more tool that you could easily get to get started with acrylic pour. Okay, so I hope you kind of enjoyed learning a little bit more about some of the materials that I use for acrylic pour, just different options of places that you can get them. I will also link below to a sheet that I created that are a bunch of online places that you can get these supplies from. Oftentimes they do ship in bulk, which helps keep the cost down, but then the caveat is then you have 200 cups when maybe you only needed 15, which is where a lot of people think it's a little bit more convenient just to get the kit that has the supplies you need for the next 5 to 6 pours, and you don't have to worry about having a ton of supplies at your house. I'll also link below if you are interested in getting one of these pre-made kits. Like I said, all the supplies come already in here. It is free shipping as well, and it ships really quickly. So within 24 hours of placing your order, kits usually get shipped out. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name, again, is Megan. The website that I have is Elements of Acrylic Pour. On this website, if you are interested, I do teach a course that you can learn the top 3 techniques that I use to create some of the artwork that's behind me. So I have 3 tired and true techniques that I use, and I walk you step by step through the process, because that's one thing I noticed on YouTube. A lot of times they're either speeding up the videos and not explaining the process, or they go so slow but they don't really explain the why or the different alternatives to doing what they're doing. So I really broke it down into very easy to understand modules. You can follow along with me and learn very easily. All skill sets are welcome in these courses, and it's just a different way to expand your knowledge set. So I'll link that information below if you're interested in the course. And again, otherwise those kits are available on our website too. So definitely check us out on YouTube at Elements of Acrylic Pour Art, and on Instagram at Elements of DIY.